cortisol, you may have heard of, it's a hormone that is responsible for breaking things down in the body. So it attacks and can break down all kinds of tissues in the body. It's what's called a catabolic hormone, meaning it breaks the body down. Cortisol has also been linked to obesity and increases in fat levels and things like that, because when cortisol and insulin they sort of work together. And if they're not working together properly, particularly during periods of high mental stress, then you start seeing these increases in body fat levels. What we do know is that amino acids, particularly leucine, so one of these branch-chain amino acids called, can decrease cortisol levels. So if you're taking a shake first thing in the morning, this is going to decrease cortisol and put your body in a state where it can better deal with the stresses of the day and become healthier. And this really needs to be done within 30 minutes of getting up. So get up in the morning, have your Evolve shake first thing in the morning is really going to set your body up nicely for the rest of the day as far as being in a positive state. Something to consider as well related to this whole cortisol thing is you might want to avoid coffee first thing in the morning. There's been some recent research that's shown that early morning coffee consumption, and it's not caffeine consumption, but coffee consumption. So there seems to be something in the combination of the caffeine in the coffee plus other chemicals in the coffee that will actually stimulate cortisol release. So an alternative, particularly if you're in the burn program and really looking at weight loss, an alternative may be use a thin as a replacement for your coffee first thing in the morning. Our next important period is kind of around this exercise time. And nutrients can be taken either pre or post-exercise. If you're in something like the EDGE challenge and you're doing a lot more exercise, or if you're exercising 6 days a week, even on any of the other challenges for more than an hour at a time, it may be worth considering doing both a pre and a post-exercise intake of nutrients. So there's about an effective window that starts from about 60 minutes before your exercise session until about 60 minutes after your exercise session when you want to get your nutrients in. And after exercise, even though we're saying 60 minutes, the sooner you can do it, the better. So you kind of want to get in this habit of, while you're cooling down, or if you're stretching at the end of your training session, you might want to get in the habit of consuming your post-workout shake at that point. And protein is still the key, but what we're going to see is the addition of carbohydrates and antioxidants is really going to enhance the effects of the protein. So you might want to consider, if you have them, throwing in a shot of Ultimate or taking a shot of Ultimate at the same time that you take your post-exercise shake. And here's what we can see. Now, what this graph is a graph of protein uptake into the muscles. And this is looking at different combinations of nutrients. So we have 40 grams of mixed amino acids. So this is something sort of like what you would get if you just had a regular food afterwards, a regular protein-containing food afterwards. You would have a mix of mixed amino acids. So we get this much protein uptake into the muscles. So this is really a measure of how much of the stuff is actually being used and how much protein synthesis is being turned on, so how effective your exercise session was. Now, if we look at 40 grams of the essential amino acids, and again, remember we said there are some that are essential because your body can't make them, and others your body can make from other substances. So you get a little bit more of a boost if you take in just those essential amino acids. But what's really interesting is if you look here, so a much smaller amount of essential amino acids, so only 6 grams of essential amino acids, plus 35 grams of sucrose. So 6 grams of essential amino acids and 35 grams of sucrose, which is basically table sugar. Look at how much protein synthesis you get going on there. Again, a huge, huge jump in the amount. And this is both post-exercise. So we're already talking about the big increase we saw in the earlier slide being reinforced by what we see here, or even magnified further by taking in both the combination of sugars, sucrose, plus the amino acids at the same time. So getting a shot of the thin in, or sorry, getting a shot of the ultimate in at the same time that you are, doing your after-exercise shake can have huge, huge effects on what you get out of your training session itself. And the timing on this is everything. So this is really, really critical. And I'm going to go through the next few slides. They're just looking at some of the research that's actually been done on this and how dramatic the results are just from changing the timing, even if you're using the same substances at different times. So this first study looked at a group of 13 men, average age 74 years of age, and they were strength training for 12 weeks, 3 times a week, and they were taking a carbohydrate protein drink either immediately after their exercise session or they were waiting for 2 hours after their exercise session. So this is kind of the scenario of, you go to the gym and you have your post-workout drink ready and waiting for you when you get back to your locker and you drink it right away, compared to saying, oh, yeah, I'll just wait till I get home, that'll be fine. Well, here's what happens. If we look at strength increases, and so this is strength increases on a leg extension is what they were measuring. So the group here in green that took the drink immediately after exercise session, you can see how much greater their increases were in strength compared to the group that waited 2 hours. So the group that waited 2 hours, less than half the increase in strength that the group that took it immediately post-exercise. Same exercise program, dramatically different results just based on when they took in the drink. We can also see the effects on, here's again looking at the effects on strength, muscle growth as well. So over here we're looking at, again, percent changes in strength in the group that took it immediately post-exercise, big increases in strength, compared to the group that didn't, almost no increases in strength. So really, you could waste an awful lot of time and a lot of energy in your exercise session just by not taking in the nutrients at the right time. We can see here quadricep size, so that's the size of all the leg muscles combined. Much bigger increases for the group that came in immediately post-exercise versus 2-hour post. And if we look at the size of the individual muscle fibers, and this is really the important one, particularly when we're talking about this type of a group of older individuals where there's a tendency as part of the aging process to lose a certain amount of size of the individual muscle fibers themselves. So what we see happen is an increase in muscle fiber size in the group that was taking the nutrients immediately after exercise. The group that waited 2 hours continued to decrease in muscle size, muscle fiber size. And this means that their body was still, the cortisol levels and everything were still high, and their body was still breaking itself down even 2 hours after the exercise session. So some huge, huge differences seen here just based on taking something immediately after your exercise versus waiting for a couple of hours until you get home.